Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and these are my top 10 best movies of 2016. I've seen the narrative that 2016 was a bad year for film, spread across the internet like wildfire toward the end of the year, but I have to say, I disagree with that mantra. I actually think 2016 had a lot of really quality films to offer, and that led to a really hard decision-making process as I tried to come up with this list, tried to dwindle it down to only 10. As you'll see, I have a lot of honorable mentions. And then even within those final 10, what order do I put them in? But I've debated, I've struggled, I've went back and forth within myself, and I have finally come up with my top 10 movies for 2016. This is my personal list. It doesn't necessarily reflect what I think are the best made or most quality films. They're just the films in the order in which I enjoyed them the most, in which I thought they were just the best movies that I saw in 2016. Civil War was just a huge, epic, awesome movie. It was my top superhero movie of the year, and I think it was just really well done. Of course, when we're dealing with Marvel, the action set pieces are going to be fantastic. The CGI and effects are going to be wonderful. And we already know these characters. We have some new ones that were introduced who honestly stole the show here. But what really set Civil War apart from the standard comic book fare for me was the emotional stakes. Not only did we have political and ideology battles going on throughout the film, we also had just pure, raw emotion that led to such a heart-wrenching, heartfelt, impactful final battle between Cap and Iron Man that this film just blew the others out of the competition for me, and it's why it's the only comic book film that made my top 10 of the year. So Zootopia comes from Disney, thus, of course, the animation is going to be gorgeous, just top-notch, beautifully animated film here. But it's the story details that really elevate this film. First of all, the wonderful world building that takes place really blew my mind. I loved the fact that they just built all of these different boroughs, and they were all so unique and so realistic and so wonderful, so imaginative. But I also thought that the characters were well written and wonderful, super relatable, and that the people over at Disney were able to make a really fun buddy cop movies with talking animals. But the biggest plus for Zootopia in my eyes was the wonderful messages about racial diversity and prejudice and racism, as well as sexism in the workplace and with ability. I just thought all of it was done so well. It was made accessible to a young audience, and that's really the audience that we need to start with, but also sophisticated enough for adults to really appreciate it and understand it and grasp it as well. Lion proved to be a film that just kind of grabbed me by the heart and never really let go throughout the entirety. The first act of this film, when we spend time with that little boy just kind of wandering India, it was fantastic. I mean, that entire first act with that adorable small child. It was heart-wrenching to watch these kids and what they have to go through and the true facts of what happens over in India every single year, but it really engrossed you into this child's journey. It really made you root for him because of all of the negativity and the horrible circumstances that surrounded him. And it made him finding a home that much more rewarding. And then when we get to that home, Dev Patel and Nicole Kidman in particular do an amazing job of bringing his life in Australia to life. Their actions and reactions to trying to find his family and staying a family themselves was fantastic. And all of that coupled with a really just strong script across the board and an amazing score it really just lifted me up. I left that theater just feeling great and wanting to know more about what we all can do to help this situation in India. So I think any film that not only uplifts you and creates a wonderful story, but pushes you to action and makes you want to understand issues and opens your eyes to issues that are happening right now is a solid top 10 movie of the year. Hidden Figures is the perfect mix of pretty much everything I love. It is a crowd pleaser. It does follow a very familiar formula, but guess what? Those formulas work for a reason, and Hidden Figures utilizes that formula to perfection. We're told these amazing stories about amazing women who never have had their time in the spotlight up until this moment. And when you're watching this movie, it's just baffling that they never did get their moment in spotlight, because wow, do they deserve it. Thankfully, this movie gave them their proper due with an amazing cast, a wonderful script, nice directing, and just a wonderful story that everybody involved let breathe and let just kind of tell itself. Its messaging about racism and about sexism was handled so well. It was accessible to the masses while still getting the point across that, hey, this is what people had to deal with and worse just to get to the same level as everybody else. And part of me is just so excited that this movie was made. A movie about Black women succeeding against odds in mathematics, in engineering, is wonderful. I'm so happy it was made. But also, the fact that it had me literally grinning ear to ear from the moment it started all the way through to the end is what got it this high on the list. This was a magical experience for me, both in the theaters and then when I revisited it recently on Blu-ray. I think that Kubo and the Two Strings is an almost perfectly executed film. From an animation technical standpoint, it is flawless. This animation is so fantastic, absolutely seamless. I've never seen stop motion animation be this wonderful and this grand. What they were able to do with stop motion, it blew my mind. But further, the story itself was so sophisticated, so rich, so deep, that it enhanced the already gorgeous animation. You were able to really take plight with our characters and just wanted to be a part of this fable. This wonderful art of storytelling within a story. I just thought that was fantastic. Kubo and the Two Strings, from a storytelling perspective, actually holds up against the best of live action filmmaking this year. Forget just limiting it into animation. But as I've said, you can't negate that animation because I think it's the most gorgeous animation that's been put to screen this year. To be honest, Rogue One initially was a little bit further down in my top 10 until I went back, had a second viewing, and watched it in IMAX 3D, and that's what really propelled it into my top 5 films of the year. I love almost everything about Rogue One. First of all, I love that we are given a gritty, real, dark version of the Star Wars universe. For the first time, we're given something this dark, this heavy. Plus, I was able to really connect with a lot of the characters, even though, again, I can admit that they didn't have the best of character development. I thought Jyn Erso was a hero that we could stand behind. K2SO was wonderful, one of the funniest characters in cinema this whole year. Donnie Yen's character was fantastic. All of our cast really put together an ensemble that you wanted to be a part of. Whether you knew their backstory or not kind of was irrelevant because you got to know them quickly, and they were also likable that you wanted to be a part of the team. Plus, that third act space battle corresponding with the beach battle down below deserves a spot in the top 10 all on its own. It was just so fantastic. It was both nostalgic, and innovative all in one, and I think that is a huge testament to the film. Not to mention that final Darth Vader scene was so badass. It was one of my favorite moments in film this year, and really all of that is what gets you in at number 5 on my list. After seeing La La Land for the first time, I was immediately, completely captivated by this film. And actually, this one was definitely in the running for favorite film of the year for quite some time. And after having some separation and having a little bit of discussion about the film, I think I tempered a little bit understanding the technical issues that did actually take place here. But wow, did it still get my heart? Did it still feel like a modern day fairy tale? La La Land was kind of the film that perfectly mashed who I am together on screen. It had all of the whimsy of a fairy tale, all of this beautiful romance going on throughout the film, but yet there was so much cynicism that would eke its way out, and I loved that. That's pretty much me in a nutshell. Some hopeless romantic that ultimately is super cynical. And the ending of La La Land took my breath away. I still think that the ending of this film was the best moment in cinema for 2016. Plus, the score is just amazing, and I loved all of these original songs. I left just feeling both happy and sad. I was humming, I was upbeat, I was still heartbroken. All of this jumbled mess, but I was feeling. And the fact that I was humming the songs and I couldn't get this movie out of my head for at least a month after I saw it is what gets it into the top 5. Could have gotten it a little bit higher, but I think the 3 films left were executed just a little bit better. This was the most intimate and personal experience I had face-to-face with the film this year. Much like I said with Kubo and the Two Strings, I think Moonlight is nearly a perfectly crafted piece of film. It's not big, we don't have action, we don't have a lot of things propelling this story forward, but yet I was gripped from the beginning of the movie all the way through to the ending credits. I was invested in Chiron's journey as a human being, and that's what really just pulled me into this film. First of all, the acting from the young children all the way up to Naomi Harris as the mother, and of course Mahershala Ali, all of them were wonderful, including like Janelle Monáe, who I didn't know who could really act until this, and then we saw Hidden Figures. But everybody just put their all into this movie. The direction was gorgeous. I mean, the directing in this film was really, really spectacular. I think that the editing in this movie was wonderful. And talking about fantastic scores, Moonlight also had a wonderful musical score. This film also had one of the most powerful moments in all of cinema this year, with Chiron just breaking down after being betrayed. That scene just kind of like ripped my heart out, brought out all the feels, and I loved how understated this movie was. It was treated with care, and it was presented just so beautifully. Again, it was the most intimate film of not only this year, but I think really of the past at least 5 years that I have seen, and it was so nice to see this issue within the Black community treated with such care and presented and being accepted. But above all, Moonlight felt real. This was all real. But it just, I mean, top to bottom, again, executed nearly perfectly. What can I say about Moonlight? I loved this movie. I kind of have Moana mania, everyone. First, just look at how adorable this little plush Pua is. I mean, come on. So I will be the first to acknowledge that I do not think Moana is the most perfectly executed animated film of the year. I do see some narrative flaws in there, but honestly, it just connected to me on such a personal level that I can overlook those narrative flaws and just be completely enchanted and fall in love with this film. I think Moana was the most complex, well-developed character in any animated film this year, and one of the best characters in any films, live action or animated, for 2016. She was so wonderful, and I'm glad that Disney took a chance on Moana, on a Pacific Island main character that is female with no love interest, that is purely focused on her goals and focused on her mission, being brave and helping out her village. Plus, having her in that position of power within her community and being the next chief to take over, wonderful. The visuals here were just spectacular. I really think Disney had pretty much outdone themselves with the water animation that takes place. It was mind-blowingly gorgeous. And the scenes that take place within that water, one where it's moving and you get to see like the ocean surrounding you, and then when we had that blue stingray pop up throughout the film, it takes your breath away. Plus, I think the film was just genuinely one of the funniest Disney animated films we've ever had, from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to Moana herself to an unexpectedly awesome sidekick chicken. This movie was just really funny from top to bottom. Couple that with amazing songs, and the score was wonderful. It all just compounded to make what I found to be a truly magical experience. And that's why Moana is all the way up to number 2 on my list. Before I reveal my favorite film from 2016, I have some honorable mentions to give praise to first. 10 Cloverfield Lane was my pick for the best horror or thriller of the year. Florence Foster Jenkins was a wonderful comedy with amazing performances. Pete's Dragon may just win the award for biggest surprise of the year because wow, did this film just enchant me. The Jungle Book was the great special effects breakthrough for 2016. A Monster Calls was a recent entry to the list. I think that Deadpool was extremely faithful to the source material. It was a breath of fresh air to the genre. Fences featured 2 of the best acting performances of the year and a complete and total powerhouse acting performance in Viola Davis. The Edge of 17, a huge surprise, an amazing high school comedy coming of age story. The Nice Guys was my favorite comedy of 2016. Hacksaw Ridge was such a unique and wonderful war story. And honorary number 11, barely missing my list, was Miss Sloane. So now it is time to reveal my favorite movie from 2016. This film blew me away. After I saw Nocturnal Animals, I sat in that theater just silent, taking it all in, thinking about the experience that I just had in that theater. This film made me think, made me feel, made me react more than anything else I saw in movies this year. It was such a complex film that was shot gorgeously. The musical score was simply amazing, and the acting performances flawless, from Jake Gyllenhaal to Amy Adams to the supporting characters in Aaron Taylor Johnson and Michael Shannon. Everybody brought it here. And so did Tom Ford behind the camera and with his pen put to paper for writing this script. Because this movie easily, and it almost teeters on it, falls into self-indulgent mess, but it stays right on that cutting edge to deliver a thought-provoking, provocative, sleek, beautiful, dark, cynical film that I just loved. I fell in love with this movie from the moment we got those crazy opening credits all the way through to present day. I had to see it again before I made this list, and upon that second viewing, it really did solidify what a sophisticated piece of art Nocturnal Animals was. And that is why it is my favorite film of 2016. So what did you think of my list? Do you agree? Did you disagree? Are there any films on here you didn't like? Or are there any films here that you also loved? Let me know either in the comment section down below or hit me up on Twitter. Also, leave your personal top 10 favorite movies of the year down below. I want to see what everyone else loved this past year. I love you all so much for your support. Mwah! Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!